What's the craziest thing you've done while drunk? Story number 1. Jumped off balcony into pool to get away from cops. Turned out some cops were around pool. Did not work. Reply 1. Can you elaborate on that? Reply 2. They were busing a party. I was upstairs trapped in a room with a balcony overlooking the pool. So I was like, I know what to do. Reply 3. I remember I saw a story about a girl who was drunk and she fell off the balcony. They were about 4 or so stories up and she landed straight on the ground. Apparently everyone at the party said they heard a cracking noise or something. She ended up paralyzed for life. The sad thing is, she could have been saved. The people at the party didn't call 911 for a while because there were drugs at the party and they didn't want to be caught. Their selfishness ended up ruining this girl's life. She was a teenager. Thankfully for you, there was a pool. Things could have ended terribly for you. Reply 4. Similar thing happened while my parents were having their house looked after by my sister's friend. She decided to have a party at their house while they were away. 2 dudes got drunk, started fighting, and one got pushed off of their 2.5-story deck. He flailed to grab onto something and ended up pulling a girl down with him. We figure he must have landed on top of her because he walked away with scrapes and bruises, and she had a dozen broken bones and was in the hospital/physical therapy for a long time. Story 2. Tried to put my hand over my mouth to hold in vomit. Did not work. Sprayed it everywhere. Reply 1. This gave me flashbacks to high school when I puked on the bus. Imagine filling your mouth with air so your cheeks expand. Replace the air with vomit. Reply 2. This gave me flashbacks to when my cat started to show signs of imminent vomiting and I wanted to put him outside quickly, but accidentally grabbed him by the belly wrong and he just sprayed vomit everywhere. Reply 3. I did this in college. Ate a bad salad that was not sitting well in my stomach, then went to a frat party that was only serving natural light. That stuff makes me want to puke in the best of circumstances. So I figured if I just chugged enough of it, I'd get drunk and not have to really taste it. I thought wrong. After about 7 beers, my stomach started positively churning. So I headed to the back exit to go hurl in the backyard. Problem was the back stairs were blocked by all these disgusting sorority chicks. Before I could say, "Move, I gotta puke," it all came roiling up into my mouth. I tried to hold it back with my hands, but it just kept coming. Unfortunately, my effort to hold it back just pressurized my vomit and it sprayed all over the sorority girls. I vividly remember a piece of half-digested lettuce got stuck to one girl's forehead. The crowd quickly parted and I ran the hell out of there, barfing the whole time. I was mortified at the time, but now it's ducking hilarious. Story 3. Danced with a girl at last call. Both of us almost blackout drunk and got her number. Woke up the next afternoon and could not remember who she was. Decided to give her a call for lunch. After 4 years together, we are getting married in a few months. Reply 1. I like that turn of events. Reply 2. Kids, I'm going to tell you the story of how I met your mother. We were both wrecked at a party and got her number and couldn't remember who she was. The next day, LOL. Haha, top bants. Reply 3. They say alcohol shatters relationships. It makes as many as it shatters. Sometimes simultaneously. Story 4. Top 3. Got blackout drunk staying at a random person's house. Needed a piss. Thought his wardrobe was the toilet and pissed in his tuba, all whilst thinking he must be proper posh to have a gold toilet. Got permanently banned from a posh hotel by trying to steal their fully decorated 15-foot Christmas tree. Got it properly wedged into the hotel doors and it had to be cut up. Stole a bus stop, team effort, like the whole ducking shelter. Sober me woke up to the damn thing in my back garden and with the realization that it involved multiple tools and superhuman feats of strength to get the thing out of the ground and carried home. Kept it at a smoking shelter until me, Tennessee was up. Edit. A few more for your amusement. Flooded a hotel bathroom, which then caused the ceiling for the restaurant to collapse. Invited myself into and then passed out in some random people's flat. Destroyed their toilet and slept in an inflatable chair with my feet hanging out a window. They made me breakfast in the morning before I left. Apparently, I was quite entertaining that evening. Broke into and trashed a rather famous band's tour bus whilst they were on stage. I felt that they had wronged me in some way. Had a wheelie bin race with a friend down a massive hill, us inside the bins. Crashed into several cars on the way. Mistook a kitchen pedal bin for a urinal. Apparently, the owner shouted at me midstream and it wasn't a toilet. So I apologized and closed the lid, but continued to piss on it. I have also been banned from multiple pubs and hotels following Christmas parties for a variety of misdeeds, including but not limited to walking on top of tables as a shortcut to the toilets, shitting in a swimming pool following drunken sex in said swimming pool, and countless acts of nudity. I'm also exceptionally glad that all of these things took place before mobile phones with cameras and any form of social media. Reply: how the duck did you steal an entire bus stop cabin and carry it to your backyard? Asking for a friend, by the way. Story 5. I decided to get on my friend's broken trampoline even though we were told absolutely not to and fell through it. That's not the worst part. Apparently, a colony of snails were living underneath it, so I was covered in snail shells and snail goop. I couldn't stop crying from the mass murdering. Reply 1. If it's any consolation, it is really mass murder. More mass negligent snail slaughter. Does that help? Reply 2. Snail slaughter. Made me chuckle. Story 6. I climbed a tall fence and cuddled with my Malaysian tapir. Those things are huge. Reply 1. Did the tapir mind? Reply 2. The tapir loved it, rolled onto its back, and received belly scratches. Story 7. I bought a one-way ticket to Thailand over a year ago. I have a nice apartment in Vietnam right now. Story 8. Walked around downtown and spent $100. To this day, I don't remember what I spent the money on. I just know I had the money on Friday night, and by Sunday, it wasn't there anymore and I was still drunk. Reply 1. Booze, I would guess. Reply 2. This reminds me of a time in college when, after another night of heavy drinking, I was at work and for the life of me could not figure out what happened to $80 that was in my wallet. I tried to figure it out all day. When I got home from work that evening, I immediately saw an old ski area sign in the living room and said, "Damn, that is ducking sweet. Whose is it?" My roommate responded, "It's yours. You bought it from me for $80 last night." I have never been more proud of drunk me. I don't think I will ever sell that sign unless someone offered me a few thousand. Story 9. Uprooted a park bench and brought it into a crowded pub because I was asked to see if I could find available seating. I remember feeling brilliant for my out-of-the-box thinking at the time and not understanding what everyone was upset about. Reply 1. I was traveling in the train once. This man in black trench coat and wayfarers stood right in front of me as he didn't get a seat. He was also carrying a folding chair. He suddenly unfolded it and sat on it like a ducking king. What a legend. Reply 2. In a similar vein, in college a few of us decided we were going to have breakfast atop the roof covering the entrance of our dorm. We needed seating and a table. Well, there's a picnic table in the quad. Let's just put it up there. 2 went atop. 2 of us lifted it. They pulled it up, to which this effeminate RA from the floor below us came out as he was on call and heard our laughing and the racket we were creating. When questioned, one of us, who will remain anonymous, said to said RA, "You'll duck and get over it," as we deposited the table on the roof. 7 a.m. the next day, campus PD bangs on our doors looking for us. I slept through this because I can sleep through a nuclear war. My friends didn't get me involved because I was in the middle of an athletic tryout on campus and didn't want me in trouble. Took the table down and got some disciplinary actions from housing services. Best part, campus PD was all mad and stern, giving us a talking to. RA goes back in the building, PD checks around, no one is near, turns to my friends and says, "That was the funniest shit I've seen so far, and I've been here 20 years. Alcohol was clearly involved. Copious amounts. Reply 3. That reminds me of the time I moved a downed tree from one side of the lake inlet. We were on the other side. There was no reason except I was drunk and thought it would be fun. A few other guys joined in and we got it across. Though not without a lot of scrapes and bruises I dealt with the next few days. Story 10. Not craziest, but my favorite. My bachelor party. I got up on stage while the band was between sets. I then called out my friends for not being drunk enough and then said, "Anyway, I just wrote a song," and started singing it. It was called Labia Slap. I got bounced 3 times from that bar that night. Story 11. Decided it was a good idea to do a backflip to impress a girl. Ignoring good reason and judgment, I decided to do it on the driveway. Head was inches from the ground, and when I brought my hands down to protect my head, knowing I was not high enough, I dragged my knuckles across the pavement. They were pretty roughed up. Drunk me isn't as good as sober me at backflips. Reply 1. Are you guys married yet? Reply 2. After giving me first aid and hanging out the rest of the night, I never saw her again. However, I did a backflip in a grocery store for the woman who is now my wife. Reply 3. I need to learn how to do backflips. Story 12. So I am a runner when I'm drunk. Always get away from my friends, I make new ones, and always make it back home. One time I ran away from my friends as always. A few hours later, they find me. I had climbed this billboard and was there for a while. I have no idea how I got up there, and I really don't remember getting down. Just the story after. Story 13. A little late to the party here, but there's this one time I woke up with dozens assorted packages of mushrooms encircled me on the bed. I was even more perplexed when I found a supermarket cart parked in front of my apartment. According to the witness, I insisted on going shopping at 3 a.m., claiming the mushrooms were essential for my good night's sleep. I got drunk and performed some witchcraft ritual with assorted mushrooms from supermarket, also stole the cart as souvenir. Edit. Guys, by assorted mushrooms, I meant something like enoki, shiitake, oyster, portobellos, etc. Story 14. Got out of bed, stripped naked, then squatted down and peed on my clothes. My boyfriend asked me what I was doing and I hissed at him. Shut up. Didn't even remember it the next day. Married to that dude for 13 years now. Story 15. Choked a swan after tackling it. To be fair, it was an a-hole to some ducks. Reply. That's badass. Swans are horrible people. Story 16. Went roller coasterless, roller coasting, literally just crawling round a roller coaster track on my hands and knees. Did a Lost Boys dangling from my arms, dropped of the top bit of track to the second, landed fine, but could have ruined my ducking life right there. Story 17. I'm not too crazy. I went up to my sleeping dog, signaling him to stand up, and took his spot. My friends came to me and saw my dog standing next to his bed, looking at me trying to sleep in his super tiny bed. Story 18. Had a few drinks before seeing Inception in theaters. Turns out I forgot I had taken some medication earlier in the day, and they had a pretty bad, awesome interaction. Well, about halfway through the movie, I had to pee really bad, but didn't want to miss any of the movie. So I pissed in the trash cans in the little hallway when you first enter the theater. I didn't want to fill up one can up too much, so I pinched it off and shuffled to the next one. Turns out I didn't remember a damn thing about the movie anyways. Story 19. I jumped into a cactus. Reply 1. That must have hurt. Reply 2. Yes. Yes, it did. The next morning, I woke up fully clothed in a cold shower covered in spines. Flaming Dr. Peppers. Never again. Story 20. I stared down the barrel of a loaded gun I was holding. Didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but looking back on it, drunk me is crazy. Story 21. Not me, but my husband decided it was only logical to long jump the length of his car. Except it wasn't, and he landed on the windscreen. Another time he decided to climb a giant-ass crane and then wave his phone around wildly to show me he was really at the top. Needless to say, 2 police officers also saw this shenanigan and were waiting for him at the bottom. Reply. LOL, I could never climb a crane drunk. Doing it sober is scary enough and irresponsible, even with the thrill of it. Story 22. Rented a jet ski in Florida. Stopped it while out of ways to look at a dolphin and discovered that moving is what helps keep them upright. It turned over and the guy selling them had to come out and help me get it going again. Story 23. Going home from a bar super drunk. Told my sober friend who was driving to pull into the Wawa because I had to pee so bad. Ran in, managed to pee in the toilet with no issues. Saw a big bag of Doritos on my way out, so I grabbed them and got in line. Got back in the car eating the Doritos and my friend says, "Where the hell did you get those?" I didn't take my purse into the store, and I really don't even like Doritos, lol. I told him duck it, just drive. Story 24. Thought it was a good idea to take off all my clothes and go for a swim in the ocean at 3 a.m. It wasn't. Reply. Did this as well. Mercifully, the police wrote it up as a violation of beach curfew. Reply 2. Cool. I only learned the area I'd chosen was rife with sharks cruising the next day. Luckily, the hangover dulled the seriousness of that fact. Reply 3. Did this as well, with a bottle of vodka and a broken teeth from 15 minutes earlier. I wasn't alone, so not that bad. Reply 4. I just watched an episode of Disappeared, and they suspect the guy who vanished may have done just that. Be careful out there. Story 25. So one time my friend Raymond and I decided to go out and get drunk because Raymond's girlfriend had ended up in bed with Mark, who was the third guy in our crowd. We head down to a local sports bar and proceed to drink a lot of beer and watch the football game and eat easily an entire bag of those small bar pretzels between us. This is important later. As we got more and more in the bag, this guy named Ramon joined us for a reason that I have never fully comprehended. Ramon kept on talking about how soccer was way better than American football and drinking whiskey sours. At any rate, closing time comes, and when we stand up to leave, Ramon looks at us and says, "You have been good friends to me, more than any other American so far. I give this to you, my friends." He hands us this baggie and walks away, never to be seen again. We look at the bag, and it's stuffed with mushrooms. Well, Raymond has never been one to turn down a free buzz, so naturally we eat them on the spot and drive home. About halfway there, things start to get blurry, and we pull over into this tattoo place and leave the car. I was a little paranoid, so I took the baseball bat I had in the trunk with me in case anyone messed with us. We finally make it home, but due to mushrooms peeking about now, we look at the light pole in front of the house and decide it is looking at us funny. I laid into it with the bat. You know how you see those videos where they cause a huge blackout by doing this? Well, that did not happen. What did happen was a bunch of sparks flew up and the light popped and showered us with glass. I dropped the bat and Raymond and I ran out back and we passed out in the backyard. We awoke to my father beating the holy hell out of me with a set of jumper cables because the glass had also fallen in the driveway and he got a flat tire when he tried to go to work. Story 26. Threw eggs at my friends and called hookers to the party. Story 27. Schools in my city have a championship. Earlier that day, we won a match against a school well known for its large amount of delinquents. So, as me and my friends were walking around drunk off our minds in 2 a.m, we passed by the spot where we said delinquents usually hang out and drink / sometimes do drugs. As we are passing by, I have the brilliant idea to start yelling our school team's anthem at the top of my lungs. The result was about 10 guys running after us while we tried to run away as best as our drunk asses could. Story 28. Crashed a party, acted as a bartender for a while, selling alcohol from a communal stash to people that arrived after me and didn't know any better. Convinced someone to climb into what appeared to be a tiny room right at the top of the house, similar to a bell tower, laughed as he fell backwards and put his arse through the window. Got speaking with the partner thrower, admired his table, told him the carvings on the legs were really nice, and asked if I could have one. His response was, "Haha, sure, if you can get it off." So one swift kick later and I was leaving the house with an antique table leg slug over my shoulder. I was not allowed to take it home, and the taxi driver would not allow objects in the car. Story 29. Pulled out my penis and yelled some shit about it, too drunk to remember, and then proceed by falling over a fence and rolling down a large hill. Ate surströmming and liked it and ate a ghost chili pepper afterwards. Vomited out my bedroom window and left the wall outside covered in dried up vomit the night before playing a concert with solo in a church. The solo went better than expected. Decided to try walking home in freezing temperatures so drunk I could barely stand. Average drunk walking speed of 0.7 miles per hour. I gave up and called a cab because I feared I would freeze to death. Story 30. There's probably a few things I don't remember, but 2 highlights are the year a mate and I gate crashed a New Year's Eve party. Didn't know a single person and ended up being the 2 hits of the party. It was like a freaking movie. Good fun. The other time, all I remember is waking up to a cop looking at my ID, throwing up on him, then throwing up again in the back of the cop car. I don't really know why we drank in a park that night, nor do I remember much about being in a park. Story 31. My high school buddy and I, before we were of legal age, used to go out and find unlocked tractors during the spring that were parked in fields that were obviously in the middle of being plowed, and we'd finish the job while we got drunk. We became locally famous for secretly doing free work for old farmers, especially. They'd show up the next morning to a completely plowed field and a case of empty beer cans. We were ducking weirdos. We never told anybody it was us. That was in the early 1990s. Story 32. While I ducked a girl on a branch in a tree, went skinny dipping at 4 a.m., sleeping in some bushes and attempting a double backflip, that is what I remember of my night on the 17th of May 2016. Russetid in Norway is crazy. Last summer we had a drinking game where whoever could pee all an electric fence the longest without stopping could win. Don't even remember the rules, but they were ridiculously funny at the time. The most crazy thing I have done while drunk though would be the backflip I did from a 10+ meter high cliff. Would never have been able to do that sober. Story 33. Me and a bunch of friends were camping in southern Arkansas on one of their grandparents' land. It was beautiful and secluded farm country. They locked the cattle gate behind us, and we drove about 2 miles to where pasture met forest and a small river to set up camp and start drinking. Between 7 p.m. and midnight, I had about 12 beers and several slugs from a whiskey bottle being passed around. I was good and drunk, so I pissed in the bushes, then crawled into my tent to sleep. 2 hours later, I wake up to panicked shouts and a bit of crying. 2 guys who didn't drink as much as me decided to do some night fishing, and one ended up with 2 barbs from a treble hook deep in his palm. The other guy decided to be helpful and pushed the 2 hooks all the way through so he could snip off the barbs and pull the hook out. It worked, but he created 2 more wounds and pulled a bit of meat out of my buddy's palm along with the hook, and they couldn't stop the bleeding. They woke up the girls to see if they had any sanitary supplies to stop the bleeding, and that's who was crying. At this point, everyone is at least a little bit drunk and a little bit panicky. Since I was the first person to go to sleep, it's decided I am the most sober and capable to drive. I drove a car full of drunk teenagers 45 minutes through the dark Arkansas hills to the nearest ER after waking up a nearly 70-year-old farmer in the middle of the night while covered in blood to open his cattle gate. This may not seem all that crazy to you guys, but looking back on it, I can't help but think how easily I could have killed all my friends in the car, and who knows how many others in my drunken, tired state. Story 34. Around 7 years ago, I drove about 17 kilometers when I was blind drunk. I remember starting off. I remember waking up at home in bed the next morning. I don't remember anything in between. Thankfully, on that day, nothing untoward seems to have happened. When I checked the car the next morning, there were no dents or scratches. That was the last day I drove drunk, and that was the day I realized that people who think driving drunk is an achievement have absolutely no idea what they are talking about. Story 35. Twerked in a busy city at night with my skirt riding up the whole time. My friends had to keep pulling it back down for me. I legit just had a free-for-all where I was running up and down the sidewalk, ass cheeks out. Story 36. I've told this story before, but the quick version is I got drunk at my GF's party, had sex with her in the pool with everyone there. After that, I went up to her brother and slapped my cock across his face and said, "That was Justin, your sister. I'm going to hell." Story 37. I made it all the way sliding down a 50-meter long escalator handrail leading to the subway without hurting myself. I went down at an incredible speed and legit thought I might die. It was pretty steep. Not sure how I got the landing at the bottom, but I was standing up. People stared at me in shock and yelled at me to calm down. My pants smelled like burnt rubber afterwards. Worth it. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, then make sure to like and subscribe. Also, feel free to comment any video idea you would like us to cover next.